Supreme Court decision. FDA v. Wages and White Lion Investments, LLC, 23-1038. April 2, 2025. Background: the Supreme Court considered whether the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, acted lawfully when it denied authorization for the marketing of flavored electronic nicotine delivery systems, e-cigarettes or vapes, under the Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act, TCA, of 2009. The TCA empowers the FDA to authorize new tobacco products only if they are appropriate for the protection of public health, which requires balancing whether products help existing smokers quit against the risk that they attract new users, especially youth. E-cigarettes surged in popularity since 2007. While potentially safer than combustible cigarettes, their flavors, particularly candy, fruit, and dessert varieties, have proven attractive to younger users. In 2016, the FDA classified e-cigarettes as tobacco products, requiring manufacturers to obtain pre-market authorization to continue selling them. Case details. Respondents: Wages and White Lion Investments, LLC, doing business as Triton Distribution, and Vapitasia, LLC, submitted applications seeking approval to sell flavored e-liquids. Their applications included scientific literature reviews, survey data, and detailed marketing plans intended to prevent youth use. The FDA denied these applications, concluding respondents failed to present sufficiently robust scientific evidence, such as randomized controlled trials or longitudinal cohort studies, to prove their flavored products offered more public health benefits than tobacco-flavored products. The FDA also, citing efficiency, chose not to review the marketing plans, despite earlier guidance that such plans were critical. The companies challenged the FDA's decision in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. The en banc Fifth Circuit ruled in favor of the companies, stating the FDA acted arbitrarily by changing its standards from what was previously articulated in guidance documents. The Fifth Circuit particularly criticized the FDA's failure to review marketing plans and rejected the FDA's argument that this omission was harmless error. Supreme Court decision. The Supreme Court unanimously vacated the Fifth Circuit's decision and remanded the case for further consideration. The opinion, delivered by Justice Alito, contained the following key points. Notice and comment rulemaking. Argument. The court did not address whether the FDA should have adopted standards through formal notice and comment rulemaking rather than through adjudications because the issue was not fully briefed or part of the granted certiorari. Change in position doctrine. The Supreme Court examined whether the FDA violated administrative law by improperly changing its standards mid-process, applying the change in position doctrine. The court concluded that the FDA had not violated this doctrine regarding scientific evidence. FDA's requirement for rigorous scientific evidence, e.g., randomized controlled trials, was consistent with earlier, more flexible guidance, which never explicitly precluded stricter standards. Comparative efficacy, flavored versus tobacco flavors. FDA's requirement for applicants to demonstrate a public health benefit of flavored products over tobacco flavors was reasonably implied by earlier guidance, emphasizing flavors' role in youth use and the necessity for product comparisons. Device type, open system versus cartridge-based products. FDA's broadened enforcement beyond cartridge-based products was consistent with its stated concerns about youth migration between product types, driven primarily by flavors, rather than device design. However, the FDA did violate the doctrine regarding marketing plans. The FDA conceded it was arbitrary not to consider marketing plans it previously deemed essential. The FDA argued this error was harmless because similar marketing plans were later reviewed and rejected. Clarification of the harmless error rule. The Fifth Circuit had interpreted a prior Supreme Court decision, Calcutt v. FDIC, too narrowly, holding that agency errors are harmless only if the agency had no choice but to reach the same outcome. The Supreme Court clarified that Calcutt does not represent the sole exception to the remand rule, which generally mandates sending decisions back to agencies after errors. Instead, courts should use a balanced approach, considering whether an error realistically affected the decision-making process. The court did not decide whether the FDA's failure to consider marketing plans was actually harmless, instructing the Fifth Circuit to reconsider this issue under the proper clarified standard. Outcome: vacated and remanded. The Fifth Circuit's ruling was vacated, and the case was remanded for reconsideration of the harmless error issue, using the Supreme Court's guidance on the proper standard. Justice Sotomayor wrote a concurring opinion, emphasizing caution regarding the procedural handling of regulatory decisions. Implications: the FDA retains considerable discretion in evaluating tobacco product applications, particularly around scientific evidence and comparative effectiveness of flavored products. Agencies are reminded they must clearly justify policy changes, particularly where reliance interests exist. Clarifies how courts should approach the harmless error principle in administrative law, suggesting a middle ground between overly rigid and overly permissive interpretations. This case clarifies the FDA's regulatory authority and reinforces administrative law standards, especially regarding when an agency's deviation from prior guidance may be deemed arbitrary. Subscribe for more!